And I would now yield to the gentleman, the ranking member of this committee, Mr. Ackerman from New York, to make an opening statement.
I thank the chairman especially for calling this very timely, important hearing. The Egyptian revolution of 2011 is still unfolding, and its ultimate form and significance will not be clear for some time to come. But we meet today to consider what has occurred, what events and trends are currently underway, and depending on our courage, or perhaps fools that we are, we might venture some guesses about where Egypt is heading. In the midst of the macro-level crisis created by the revolution and the transition to a new government and a new form of government, there is also a very serious crisis that has developed relating to the operation of American-backed non-government organizations assisting Egyptians with the development of civil society and the non-governmental political infrastructure needed to sustain a healthy democracy. As a general rule, when it comes to foreign assistance to nations, I tend to rely on the political wisdom of my favorite philosopher, my mother. She would always say, if you want to help me my way. Help me my way. When I go abroad, I hear it over and over, even if the exact words are different and it's said in another language. Help me my way is a demand for dignity. It's an insistence that progress can be achieved by agreement and cooperation, or not at all. Even if she was at the doctor's office and being examined, she still wasn't going to be poked and prodded and stuck and stickered like a piece of livestock. She wanted to be helped, but she wanted to be helped on her terms, her way. A non-negotiable demand for respect and dignity is at the very heart of what's been happening throughout the Arab world this year. So when we in the United States think about what our response should be to these amazing and unexpected changes, our first question should be, what is it that you want from us? I do not and will not excuse the shameful assault on the 17 NGOs orchestrated by parts of the Egyptian government. Naked ambition fueled by demagoguery is to blame, along with the shameful unwillingness of responsible Egyptians to contain the damage. U.S.-Egyptian relations have already been harmed by this crisis, and if it goes unresolved, or worse, spirals out of control, it could very quickly legally foreclose our ability to provide any bilateral assistance. I think such an outcome would be a disaster for both nations. I know that our diplomats are working hard to find a mutually acceptable solution that will de-escalate this problem and allow both sides to focus on the issues that matter most in our relationship. But our efforts have to be matched on the other side by their courage to act in Egypt's own best interest. The problem is that Egypt today has a kind of government right now, and it's neither strong nor decisive, much less ambitious. Rather than having one powerful but increasingly sluggish, nearly dead hand on the switch, Egypt no longer has anyone clearly in charge. And I don't say that as an insult to the men on the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces or the SCAF. They are not, nor should they be expected to be, experts, politicians, or domestic policymakers, or elected officials. A certain hesitancy and caution regarding public policy and the administration of justice is highly appropriate for anyone in a custodial position, and in general, the Egyptian military's ambivalence about power is something we should admire and appreciate. There is a critical balance to be struck, and I will be the first to acknowledge that such a balance is hard to obtain. On the one hand, as unelected caretakers, the SCAF must be cognizant that it is operating without a popular mandate, and on the other, they have an obligation as patriots to govern in their nation's best interest until they hand power over to a new government. I don't envy their task, and having never stood in their shoes, I don't wish to be too critical. The job they're attempting is far more difficult than many suspect, but I truly believe that we are approaching a precipice beyond which our bilateral relations could suffer terrible damage. The image of Americans being captured in a Middle Eastern country following a revolution brings up some very unpleasant memories in this country. If people here conclude that Egypt is not on the path to democracy, but is instead on its way to becoming another Iran, our bilateral relationship will not survive. We're not at that point yet, but we're getting closer every day. When we ask the question, what does Egypt want from us, we may not be able to expect a strong, clear, single answer. It won't likely be coming for some time. Instead, we should expect a diversity of answers, sometimes contradictory, sometimes counterintuitive, sometimes self-destructive, and maybe often delivered in a tone of anger, frustration, and impatience. We should expect something along the lines of, if you want to help me my way. That's understandable, but it means we have to have some clarity ourselves about what we're prepared to accept and what we're ready to push back on. We can't, and should not, try to make Egypt's choices. We can and should make choices ourselves about helping Egypt that respects Egypt's sovereignty, choices that support a genuine democratic transition, and choices that prevent any long-term harm to our relations or to regional stability and security. Our interest and Egypt's interest in the United States strongly include but are much larger than the operation of our NGOs. That does not at all make the issue trivial. It is not. Both sides need to recognize the danger that this issue poses and redouble their efforts to ensure this hopefully enduring and critical strategic partnership and have it removed from the grave jeopardy that it currently faces. Each of us, and right now I'd say especially Cairo, needs to accept responsibility for this relationship and to act accordingly, and soon.